when we go to Esau, what do we see? We see, as I said, he's also described with the same way as David is, with this whole ruddy idea, right? And here's what's interesting. A lot of people, they'll say these things about Esau, but they are twins to Jacob. And it seems like the phenotype should match all the way down, at least if they're direct descendants, although that's difficult to do when you're talking 80 generations or whatever. But that would mean that the descendants of Esau, the descendants of Jacob, should be way more similar than they are. And there's all kinds of problems, especially if you got David looking like Esau. But here's the one last thing I want to show that a lot of times is not brought up in these discussions, and then I'll be done. It's where Jacob is about to meet Esau. I'm going to make it bigger in a second here, in Genesis 32. And then they eventually do meet after this wrestling with the angel and all this kind of discussion, right? But I want to show everyone, if what Hebrew Israelites say about Esau is true, then why would Jacob treat him this way? Esau ran to meet him, Genesis 33:4, and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And when Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children, he said, "Who are these with you?" Jacob said, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Jacob just described himself as Esau's servant. This does not match Hebrew Israelism's narrative. Then the servants drew near, they and their children, and bowed down. Who are they bowing to? They're bowing to Esau. Leah likewise and her children drew near and bowed down. And last, Joseph and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down. So look at this. He literally has his whole company bowed down. And in fact, he himself did the same thing. Verse 3, he himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. So I want to bring that out. And one last thing in this passage, I'm not going to go to any other passage right now. Look what he says. "Why'd you bring all these people with you?" Esau asked him, right? "To find favor in the sight of my Lord." But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." So Esau's supposed to be, the greedy white guy and this and that, and yet they're hugging, they're kissing. He's bowed down 7 times. And then you have him not wanting to take any of his stuff. "No, please, if I have found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand. For I've seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God." Now, if Esau was a white man, which I don't believe that's accurate at all, how in the world could Jacob, who you guys say is a black man, say that seeing his face is like seeing the face of God?
Can I respond to that briefly?
Yes, sir. I'll drop off, but I just want to point out the children. Notice here is in the bottom of the passage, so we're talking about the same thing. That this narrative that you guys have is very different than what the scripture itself has, and that is proof positive of it.
I want to briefly respond that the passage you just brought up, it needs more context to it, because if you read above that, it'll actually give you details as to why Jacob responded to Esau the way that he did. He was afraid of him.
I mentioned that
before he encountered Esau, he had to split up his family, and so the ones he had in front of him was for him to give to Esau, because once again he was afraid of Esau. He didn't want Esau to take out on him what happened. And so his response to him it was based on him trying to save himself and his family, basically. You're right. I mentioned that. I believe you. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that everyone sees with the context what you're saying. Jacob in verse 30 of the previous chapter says, he named the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face." So here He says he's seen God face to face, talking about the angel that he wrestled with. Then right after it, he says, like seeing Esau is like seeing God face to face. Yeah, he made that mention to pacify his brother.
So was he lying? Wouldn't it be blasphemous to see a white man and say that's like seeing God?
How many roads? Too many signs, I can't read them. Wouldn't recognize the turn even if I seen it. Been driving all along, feel like I'm dreaming. Okay.
But Genesis 33 was never dealt with. I said that Jacob was scared. We knew that. But this is a damaging connection to the case that Esau was an evil-looking demon white man or something like that. When this happens, before he goes and meets with Esau, Jacob now, he wrestles with the angel of the Lord and says, I've seen God face to face, and builds an altar to that effect. He literally says that. Then the very next day, or the next morning, however you want to put it, when he meets Esau, he's saying, seeing like you is like seeing the face of God. He had literally seen, in a manner of speaking, the face of God the night before. And then he says that to Esau. If that's just because he was scared and trying to get out of it, that's like overabundance. So why would he need to say all that? The bowing down, I could see, okay, neck, kiss, hug, okay, whatever. But that extra flourish on there, especially when he had just seen God, if Esau's this demon goat, that would be incredibly blasphemous thing to say. But what it shows is that Jacob doesn't think like a modern day Hebrew Israelite. Because ask yourself, if you saw Esau, would you hug? Would you kiss on the cheek? Would you do any of that, whether he was your brother or not?
All day, every day.
Would you bow down? No, I mean literally. Would you bow down before him and say, seeing your face is like seeing the face of God? You would not. In fact, a lot of these Hebrew Israelites, like Sakari, that some people in the room are down with, they have people bow down to them. Literally the opposite. Now, I don't think the bow down stuff's good for anybody except for Jesus. But this just shows the problem here, that none of that was addressed. None of it was even dealt with.